Hello, welcome to another episode. I'm going to talk about drawing. This is a sketch note that I have created about a year ago for one of my classes. And I don't have the fancy software to sort of show the sketch note being drawn. So I'm just going to talk through it using the screen recording. I'm kind of new to explain everything, so I think a couple of times when I came back to do more iterations, the text sort of got flattened and rasterized, meaning it was no longer vector. If it's vector, it can scale up, but I think you'll get the idea. All right, so why drawing? We communicate ideas. You have a thought. Let me get my pointer here. Okay, you have a thought, and we can always go meta here, but you need to externalize it. First, you need to externalize it for yourself and then for others. So you have this idea in your mind, you need to bring it out, you see it, and then others. And one of the key things, repeated phrases that we learn is nobody can read your mind. So if you aren't able to create this thing, this box or this light bulb right away, at least you can draw it so that that conversation can begin. Also, your ideas, not only do they need to be externalized, they also need to be developed and matured. So you should have the spiral over and over again, and of course the spiral of ideas really, really messy. It's never straightforward. You can also think of it as sort of a feedback loop, just a different way to visualize what we talked about earlier. You draw, you see, whatever you see, you draw. And then same thing here, you have an idea, you draw it out. The act of drawing, the act of seeing it will develop this awesome feedback loop. Okay, let's take a look at here. How do we do it? We want it to be fluent. So just like in speaking languages, you strive for fluency. I think this goes for both verbal, oral fluency, and also this sort of visual. You want it to be fast, and you want it to be understandable. So if it is not fast, it's going to take a really long time, and your moment of conversation, the opportunity will go away. If it's not understandable, well, then that sort of defeats the purpose. And so that's sort of where we are led to a term. I might have gotten it from somewhere, but maybe I came up with it. But anyways, it is Pictionary level. Looking for Pictionary level drawing. In Pictionary, somebody has a word. Let's say the word was level, and they are going to use a piece of paper and some sort of drawing, and their team sees only that picture, and the person needs to get their team to say level. That's how Pictionary works, and that's what we're looking for. I always say that you should respect the style that your teacher, especially if it's an art teacher, whatever they're trying to teach, but this is sort of where I am coming from. Let's see, what else? So if we want to become fluent, how do we develop it? And so that's where we go from novice to expert, and repetition is key. And the expert, you are not, the cliche is not going to become a Picasso or a Da Vinci, but you should at least be comfortable and confident. And so, repetition. You see here over and over and over again. Be like a musician playing with their scales, or the athlete shooting their free throws. And if you think about famous musicians, think of your favorite musician, your popular athlete. They did these things over and over and over again. Everybody starts without skill. Sure, some people have, more of an innate ability, but a lot of it is just because they practiced over and over again. And nobody ever holds on to the wrong notes or the missed buckets. Yet somehow, I think because we don't give ourselves the time, we aren't forgiving of ourselves to develop the skills, then we don't want to try. We just want to give up. That's sort of that typical kids get to a certain age, and especially adults, well, I can't draw. Why bother? Well, have you tried? Okay, and that's really what I hope that you can walk away being motivated to try. And of course, the more practice you get, the faster you will get. Practice the things in front of you, okay? Also signage and icons. There's actually some research about visualization and the importance of it as it pertains to engineering and design, so maybe I'll put up some links if you want to read academic work. Okay, let's get to this left side here. All right, even though CAD is computer-aided design, All right, it's what engineers, designers, architects use. Even though CAD nowadays can be more quickly accessible, a quick drawing with the right info can get the idea across. And really, the goal is for someone else to understand. And you might not get it across the first time, but you have that externalization of your idea so that they can ask clarifying questions. Also, another reason why you might not want to jump to the computer is sometimes the high fidelity, and what do we mean by that? Like hi-fi stereo system, high level of apparent quality. It implies that the idea is set, fixed, decided. All right, you might not mean that, but somebody else might think about it that way. So sometimes it's actually better to have sort of a sketch. Now, eventually you do want this level of detail to make your thing, but maybe a rough sketch, it'll prevent this sort of fake sense of high fidelity, and then it invites others to participate in the co-creation. So that's why you should get good at these sorts of things. And you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be an engineer in order to make use of these skills. Just communication. Think about those meetings where how many times have we been in a meeting where it just seems very boring and somebody's just talking and it's just type words. Again, there's value in that, but how much more could be added if we were comfortable in this sort of visual thinking. Okay, home stretch, zoom in, zoom out. All right, let's take a look at some references, resources. Dan Rome, Back of the Napkin and Visual Grammar. He's a great resource. Drawing objects with simple shapes, he's developed that. Sylvia Duckworth has some awesome resources on how to sketchnote on Google Slides, sort of more for educators. Also Mike Road, Sketchnote Handbook. And, excuse me, there's a fourth person I forgot who has done a sketch noting course. Wait for it. I think it's Doug O'Neill. I'll put it in the notes. Okay, so lots of places you can look for these things. The type that I like to teach is a sort of industrial design style, which means sort of two-point perspective. It's like the products that are right in front of you. And even though it takes a while to actually dive into these sorts of things, that's a start. Our goal is to be able to draw freehand, okay? You can use roller, but only if you have time, okay? Sometimes you don't have that time. And so these are lessons in and of themselves. So we're getting away from the sort of hash marks or tremor with lines. I should probably just draw that for you, but we'll have future episodes to demonstrate that. And we're really just sort of pivoting from our elbow, and we're going over the path multiple times. So in this, you learn arcs, which is the natural motion of your wrist, and then you have lines, okay, straight. You do ovals, ellipses. With that, you can make all different sorts of shapes, okay. All right, and then lastly, looking at the different views of an object. Okay, in engineering, there's sort of the standard views, top left, front, or usually it's top front right actually. But you can look at different views. If you're not comfortable doing the whole 3D, you can just pretend like a sheet of clear materials in front of you and draw. And then lots of inspiration out there: ideograms, icons, vector art, the Noun Project, any sort of signage for international usage, where people might be speaking different languages, and the Olympics. They create these pictograms of the sports for every Olympics. Okay, so that gives you some context of the motivation behind this drawing, and hopefully you have found something useful for you to use. Thanks for listening.